So the NBA has a viewership problem.
The NBA has become an unwatchable mess.
Lots being discussed about the ratings for the NBA.
Television ratings have fallen on a cliff.
Because the ratings for the NBA is down.
Viewership on television is down for the league. Commissioner Adam Silver acknowledges the decline in viewership.
All right, enough of that. The biggest discussion in all of sports is without question the current state of the NBA and the TV ratings that reflect it. People have had words for the quality of basketball and style offensively that the NBA has swayed to, and how they think this has resulted in low viewership across the league. This is a tiring, yet fascinating topic that has so many elements to it. With the NFL's sustained success, the comparisons are inevitable, but all the factors that go into viewership has the NBA under a microscope of the sports world. The future of the association is in question, and Adam Silver knows that, but I think this discussion might be a bit overblown, and it's time to see why. According to viewership numbers, the NBA has hit its lowest mark ever over the last few years. National NBA TV broadcasts have lost nearly half of their viewership since the 2011-2012 lockout shortened season. The league averaged more than 2.5 million viewers per nationally televised game that year. This year, the number is down to 1.4 million. The league is also down about 19% compared to last year. And the playoffs have been no different. This past postseason, the average viewership was down 12% to 4.53 million. This is also reflected in the finals, as the average watchers this decade has reached an all-time low. The 2020 finals between the Lakers and the Heat saw a league history low 4.0 rating with 7.45 million viewers on average. That number has increased, however, but still lower than past decades, as the most recent finals between the Celtics and the Mavericks saw only 11.31 million average viewers. To compare just how low these marks are, before 2020, the lowest finals ratings and average viewership in NBA history was in 2007 between the Spurs and the Cavs. This series gained a 6.2 rating with 9.3 million average viewers. And the 12.4 million watchers from the Warriors and Celtics series in 2022, the highest mark of this decade, will be amongst the lowest from the beginning of the 21st century. All these numbers, among many more, have caused an uproar from the sports world about how the NBA is quote-unquote dying compared to other major sports leagues. But this isn't the first time that the league has faced these kinds of conversations. In 1991, with the headline of NBA ratings down more than college, NBC's NBA coverage was down 12% after the network's 4-year, $600 million contract was touted as the deal of the decade. Or in 1999, after Michael Jordan's second retirement, the ratings fell to their lowest levels in 18 years. And even in 2007, people questioned the new 8-year, $930 million TV deal that the NBA agreed to, despite plummeting numbers. So this topic has been going on for a long time, but now it seems more prevalent than ever. So what are some factors as to why the ratings are down currently, and how do they compare to other leagues? Well, a lot of things are currently taking place in the NBA. But the biggest and most influential reason for viewership numbers being low is the current state of cable. People can say whatever they want about the product being put on the court, which I'll get into later. But the truth of the matter is that cable is slowly dying, and this has affected the NBA. Since 2011, the number of cable subscriptions has steadily decreased, driven by the rise of video streaming services and an increase in cord cutting. In 2017, there were over 96 million cable TV subscribers, which was still a 3% decrease from the year before. But in 2024, that number shrunk to only 68.7 million users, a 5% decrease from 2023. Now there is still a large amount of cable subscribers, but it's not the demographic that will maximize the NBA's reach. 50% of people over the age of 65 say they still use cable TV, which typically isn't a recipe for sports watchers. And each age group younger than that are all well below that 50% mark. But if we want to look specifically at the NBA's major TV networks, they saw a huge decline in viewership on their general platforms. In 2023 and 2024, there were only 3 cable networks that averaged more than 1 million viewers in primetime: Fox News, ESPN, and MSNBC. For comparison, in 2014, when cord cutting was just beginning, there were 19 cable networks, including TNT, one of the NBA's major broadcast channels, that has surpassed the 1 million audience threshold. Even though ESPN is currently a part of this thin group, Their average of 1.67 million viewers last year was still a 2% fall off from 2023. For TNT, they averaged only 815,000 primetime viewers, a ridiculous 13% decline from 2023. In 2014, when TNT last renewed a 9-year agreement to showcase NBA games, the cable network had been averaging over 2 million primetime viewers for the entire year. This large overall decline in cable viewership is directly tied with two key issues for companies: streaming deals and illegal streams. More than ever are consumers moving to streaming services for their TV entertainment, and the NBA is a step behind in adjusting to that. But the NFL, on the other hand, has done a ridiculously great job leveraging that shift with their new broadcasting deals with Peacock, Amazon Prime, YouTube TV, and even Netflix for this year's Christmas games. And another underrated but huge aspect of all this is by the NFL using these streaming services to showcase games, this prevents people from switching back and forth between NBA and NFL games that you could do in the past with regular cable TV channels. This is a very smart move by the NFL, because it forces people to choose between one league at a time. And then on the other side of the streaming world is illegal streams. In 2023, there were 229.4 billion visits to piracy sites, a 6.7% increase from 2022. Of those 229 billion, 103.8 billion of it, or 45%, were to TV sites, a 4.2% increase from the year before. Over 9.3 billion of those visits were to live sports sites. I got access to a joint anti-piracy letter from the UFC, NBA, and NFL from 2023 that explained how impactful illegal streams are to the sports world and their companies. It has been reported that the global sports industry is losing up to $28 billion in additional potential revenue due to live piracy. The three leagues claim that current US laws and regulations do not adequately address copyright strikes on time. And this is a situation that is continuously growing in the sports world, that many general fans have not acknowledged as an issue to why the NBA viewership numbers are declining. But another off-the-court reason that many folks can agree on is the marketing strategies from the NBA, or lack thereof. There are more young stars and rising talent in the league than ever before. Even bottom-of-the-barrel teams have at least 1 to 2 exciting young prospects that put on a show during barely watched games on nightly slates. But the NBA has created a scheduling issue, as they become accustomed to showcasing the same older and declining teams consistently for their national TV games. For example, recently there was a stretch of games that included a Thunder-Knicks thriller, 2 back-to-back Wemby vs Jokic games that went down to the wire, and a potential finals preview between the Celtics and Thunder. None of those games made it onto primetime TV. One of them was even placed on a Sunday afternoon while NFL football was on. The league has constantly fumbled chances to highlight must-see matchups that core NBA fans have looked forward to, and instead they are buried onto NBA League Pass where many viewers don't have access to it. This brings me to my next point, where the NBA's most hyped up regular season matchups tend to still include either 40-year-old LeBron James and the play-in team Lakers, 36-year-old Kevin Durant and the play-in team Suns, or 36-year-old Steph Curry and the play-in team Warriors. Now, I'll always tune in for a LeBron vs Steph or KD matchup, but I think a big reason that the NBA has hit a rough patch in terms of reaching a bigger audience over the years is because they are still clinging on to these three legends, among few others, instead of introducing the world and pushing forward more younger and far more talented teams into the spotlight. A big example of this was this year's Christmas slate. The NBA missed the mark on not including an MVP candidate and the #1 team in the West from back-to-back years with the OKC Thunder. I understand they are a small market team, and the whole world is watching, but that's literally the perfect time to be promoting one of the league's best players and teams to all of the viewers. Then they also put arguably the best young superstar in the whole world in Victor Wembanyama at the very beginning of the day, preventing some people from missing an absolute gem of a game where Wemby put up 42 points and 18 rebounds in Madison Square Garden. And instead, the marquee matchup, the game right after football is over, is between two guys drafted in the 2000s on two teams that are barely 500, and it became the most watched regular season game in 5 years. But I can't blame the NBA for holding on to this LeBron and Steph rivalry, because the game was a classic, and they've continued to give us classic after classic after classic. And the Christmas turnout was actually great. Every game went down to the wire, and viewership was up 84% from last season. But part of the problem is it's coming at the expense of the future of the league. The young stars aren't being promoted like the older ones still are, and the league needs to start prioritizing getting these great teams that people may not be familiar with on national TV before it's too late. And another aspect of marketing comes from the media, who's doing a terrible job uplifting the game. The NBA has by far the worst daily media in all major pro sports. When you tune into a talk show, pregame, or even a halftime show, there's rarely any dissecting of games, schematic breakdowns, or any form of basketball teaching that takes place during these segments. The NFL, who I think does the best job at this, makes arguably the most technical and complex sport somewhat easier to understand and grasp for casual viewers to learn about the game. Their daily talk shows do a great job breaking down different styles of play from different teams and players. The NBA, on the other hand, will spend significant airtime talking about irrelevant topics away from current situations going on during a game or the league at the time. During the halftime coverage of this past NBA Finals, the ESPN crew spent an embarrassing 1 minute and 20 seconds of airtime on screen talking about the game. The remaining time included advertisements and commercials. The media also spends a lot of TV time bringing down the current state of the NBA, which affects fans' perspective of the league.
Yeah, I heard JJ Redick said something about me. He said something about we're the reason people ain't watching this crappy product we got. I said, JJ, yeah, us, like we out there jacking up 103 a night. JJ came in there thinking I can make this thing work. Hell, you can. 77, 71. Put some makeup on that pig.
Man, the Lakers are big.
The Lakers stink, man.
Oh, man, okay.
Come on, man.
Tatum, by the way, has
What you say?
put some makeup. What'd you say? Put some makeup.
Put some makeup on that pig. I'm JJ Redick. I can make this thing work. Please, Chico, please.
As much as we all love Inside the NBA, with 3 of the members being former players from a different age of basketball, they tend to complain about the amount of threes taken from teams, and this criticism also impacts the way fans view the game as well.
There's a great debate going on why our ratings are down and people are not interested in NBA. Is it threes or load management? And I said, it's probably a combination of both. That's going to turn the average fan off. But if you're just going to come out and have a three-point shooting contest every night,
Don't you think that's coaching style too, though?
I was going to ask that question. Why, like, if I'm trying to win a championship, why, if I don't have the same personnel as you, why would I use your strategy?
yeah, I mean, because it's a copycat league.
don't
But I
have a
think these
step in the
coaches
class.
are scared to coach these players because the players have so much power.
And no disrespect to the Chicago Bulls, but there's no reason they should ever shoot 53s. Like, there's not enough great shooters
In the NBA,
on their
period.
team. No,
My favorite example of this is Kenny Smith does his halftime breakdown for the Celtics and Wolves. First, he complains about Sam Hauser, the Celtics' designated three-point sniper, shooting a near wide-open corner 3 instead of driving to the rim on Defensive Player of the Year Rudy Gobert.
they have much better shooters, especially when Brown and Porzingis. Freeze it. You have Rudy Gobert running at you. This is a driving lane when you have no one there.
Then he complains about Jason Tatum waiting for a design play to develop instead of attacking the hoop, a play in which the Celtics made the shot.
That's a driving lane playing off of the three-point line instead of taking 3 points. Again, Tatum, drive the basketball. You are one of the best players in basketball. These guys, freeze it. Look at the paint. There is no one there, Chuck. This is an easy driving lane. Instead, he's looking for a 3. Now he takes a step back 3. And for me, it's just the inability to understand how to use the three-point line to get to the rim instead of just shooting 3.
This makes me realize that some of the leaders in basketball media don't really understand the game like they say they do. But viewership being down is attributed to many on-the-court factors as well. The biggest one being the amount of threes taken on a nightly basis. This season, the total number of three-point attempts league-wide is on pace to reach over 92,000, which would be an NBA record. Many fans have expressed their displeasures with the game becoming what they call a three-point fest and how it's not exciting and removes a pure element of the sport. I think everyone agrees that the best times in the NBA were when every superstar's first instincts were to drive the ball to set up their mid-range game and occasional long-range shots. But now, nearly every offense is based around the 3, and teams want to play the numbers game that gives them the best opportunity to maximize their output analytically. The game has very much become a drive and kick, three-pointer paint touch game, as the mid-range has become extremely obsolete. This is in large part to the Boston Celtics most recently winning a championship with this strategy, and teams are trying to replicate it. I believe that coaches have done a great job at scheming up good looks, and players tend to get trigger happy even when those shots aren't falling. We've seen fast break advantages turn into, let me just spot up at the three instead of taking the easy and exciting dunk. The league has also turned young and developing role players into strictly 3-and-D pieces to surround their superstar talent. This basketball epidemic has turned off the casual viewer, but there is still plenty of talent that keeps the old school style alive by prioritizing their game inside the arc. But a select few of them have mastered the next problem that the NBA has faced: foul baiting. Foul baiting has come at the expense of tough, physical defense being pushed out of the game to favor offense for more excitement. Players have become extremely smart and aware of the rules, like Shea, Trae Young, and Jalen Brunson. Their physicality and wittiness on the ball with the use of their off-arm and pump fakes makes it very tough for defenders to not get caught in illegal positions. Now, this isn't the first time this has been spotlighted in the league. We've seen guys like Kobe Bryant, Dwayne Wade, Carmelo Anthony, and the greatest foul baiter in NBA history, James Harden, use these techniques to their advantage. The league even changed the rules because of Harden on the Rockets, but now it seems like they've kind of gone backwards and lost the plot of what basketball is truly meant to be. And there is an art or skill to drawing fouls that these players have gained, I will admit that. But the league needs to keep the integrity of the sport and balance it out to give viewers the best watching experience possible. Because people still do enjoy defense, regardless of the way the NBA looks to be headed. Some of the greatest games in history were low-scoring defensive wars that forced teams to key in on every single possession to get the smallest of edges. But after all this being said, I still think that these conversations about ratings and the product of the NBA is still extremely overblown. Because in reality, the game is still in a good spot. Attendance is rising, and last year, the league set all-time records for regular season total attendance, average attendance, percentage of capacity, and sellouts for the second season in a row. The total attendance of over 22.5 million in the 2023-24 regular season broke the previous record set in 2022. There were 873 sellouts, which was up from the previous record of 791 in 2022-23. 71% of regular season games sold out, and an average attendance of 18,324 fans was an all-time high. Additionally, NBA arenas were filled to a league history high of 98% capacity. So with all this talk about people not watching the NBA, more fans showed up in-house than ever before. This is what makes me believe that the casual outsiders that are so critical on the NBA aren't actually basketball fans, and don't truly enjoy the sport like they say they do. Because diehard basketball fans will always tune into the league, but casual watchers is what drives viewership, and they just aren't delivering. And I remember a time when everyone begged the NBA to have more parity, and see more teams with the opportunity to win a championship instead of the same teams every single year in the finals. But now that we have it, less people are watching, and I'm shocked by that. But the amount of threes taken can be attributed to this entire video, and even I think that conversation deserves some context. Now, I understand that many offensive systems have become very similar and may seem boring to some people. The best way to win currently looks like you just need to jack up a bunch of threes, somewhat honed by Joe Mazzulla and the Celtics. But the way teams get shots are within an offense that includes ball and body movement, and sometimes just spectacular abilities from great players. And that's the way basketball is supposed to be. Coaches have found a way to get great open looks for their team, and it just so happens to be from three. Like, no one can tell me this isn't good, ethical basketball being played.
Little pick and roll, over top, Scotty, you know he loves to pass, another extra pass, a little penetration, find another player, another extra pass. Nobody's touching the ball longer than 2 seconds.
Again, people complain about the Celtics style of play, but no other team shares the ball like them, and they get the most open looks out of anyone in the league in a variety of ways. And other teams are showcasing their creativity too, not just Boston. The first example, Jones sets a screen to get Trae Young switched onto Harden, which leads directly into a pick and roll with Zubac, Harden knows a blitz is coming, so he dumps it off to Zoo, and with Jones clearing the strong side by cutting to the rim, Kawhi rises up to beat the tag and gets a wide open look. Next for Minnesota, after an initial Gobert high screen, Naz Reid sets another tough one and Rudy rolls hard to the rim, but he's met and feels multiple OKC defenders and kicks it out to the corner. DiVincenzo then attacks off the closeout and Ant elevates to the top of the key for the three. And lastly, from the top team in the East, the initial Mobley screen forces Westbrook to trail Garland, and with Denver in drop coverage on the Allen pick and roll, DG patiently waits for the low man to help off the corner, leaving Mitchell wide open. Would fans really much rather watch players take contested, deep middies, or miscontested layups all game? Just because it's now the three does not make the game more entertaining. And I've seen people make some crazy and irrational recommendations for how the NBA should change the rules to make the game more exciting. Like putting a cap on how many threes a team can take per game, or even removing threes completely. Or even making dunks worth 3 points, which would actually make their 3-point output even greater. This would just force teams to load up in the paint and give up a 25-footer over a closer shot at the rim. And the final perspective I'll make about all this is despite the decrease in ratings and viewership, the NBA is still very entertaining and not even close to dying. I think the first thing that we as fans need to do is embrace the trajectory that the association is headed towards and stop comparing the NBA to other leagues like the NFL. They are each in different life cycles respectively, and the NFL's success does not reflect what is or isn't going on in the NBA. I've realized that people will love the NFL regardless of the product put on the field, because things like betting and fantasy football are a huge reason for their high viewership statistics. And the NFL and its fans have done a great job at embracing the new generation of football and takes it for what it is. One of the biggest reasons less people are watching the NBA now is because it's a transitional period happening in the league. We went through a long period where LeBron, Steph Curry, Kevin Durant, and other legends that we grew up idolizing were in the finals every single year. And now the NBA is going through a phase where there's more parity and not as big of a household name in the spotlight. And the league is still adjusting as to how they need to market and move forward with the new generation of basketball. And at some point, more viewers will get accustomed to how teams operate on the floor, and will eventually realize how exciting this game still is. Because the truth of the matter is many NBA fans are blinded by nostalgia and don't truly remember how the game was 20 and 30 years ago. Because players are by far more talented than they were back then, and I guarantee that we'll look back at this era of the sport and wish we could go back.